Hey there everyone, Tcgplayer here, showing you my Magical Musket deck for the month of July. This was the deck that had been voted for me to write an article on at the beginning of August. Through Zodiac Duelist, I had started a poll there, and this was the most highly upvoted deck. The second most upvoted deck is actually going to be the Tcg deck that I will be doing through the month of August, so you'll be seeing that. And I just wanted to show you guys the final iteration of the deck before I do my article on it, which will be very in-depth on how to play it and everything like that. This is just to run through the deck list really quick because I haven't really had a whole lot to upload lately. So I'll show you guys the deck, and yeah, we'll go from there. So first you've got 3 Caspar. This is arguably the best one in the deck. They all have the same continuous effect where you can activate magical muskets, spells, and traps from your hand during the opponent's turn. Or during your turn, actually. I don't know why I said that. But Caspar, when a spell or trap is activated in its column, searches for any other magical musket card from your deck, other than if it was a spell or trap that was activated, then that one. So if you activate your Cross Dominator, for example, you can search for your Last Stand, things like that. This is just a really good consistency card. Then you've got 3 copies of Starfire. This is the one that I think is the best. Because it summons more, and I always want to see extenders with a deck like this. This lets you summon any different named magical musket card from your deck other than a Starfire, obviously. So you can summon Caspar, you can summon Kid Brave or Doc or things like that, which is pretty cool. Next, I only play 2 Kid Brave. This is just because I rarely find myself wanting to use its effect. So I just cut it to 2, and the main benefit I found in it was that it was the largest magical musket card, but I never really found myself wanting to use its effect, so put it to 2 because I have so many ways to access it. Then you've got 1 Doc and 1 Calamity for the rounding out of the magical musket cards. Doc allows you to add any magical musket card back from your graveyard, and Calamity is a monster reborn. Calamity is primarily there for your Utopia double plays, as that's the main win condition of the deck. However, Calamity also does, I think, serve a pretty good purpose in that it just keeps giving you free bodies in general, which is pretty cool. But neither of these are too important, so they were just one-ofs because you have so many ways to access them. The next engine you've got is one that was suggested to me by Hanko Chow, actually, which is Format Skipper. I was originally already playing Parallel Exceed in the deck, just because Parallel Exceed is a free rank 4 at play, which is pretty crazy, and allows you to chain block your Magical Musketeer Max, which is the most important card to resolve. However, Format Skipper becomes Max, which is incredible, and searches for Parallel Exceed, so it does the best of both worlds. And any fans of mine will know I'm a big fan of this small package right here in general. For hand traps, you've only got 3 Ash Blossoms and 3 Effect Failures. This being a budget deck, all of the sort of defensive packages like that had to be reduced. Otherwise, you could see cards like Infinite Impermanence and things like that. However, had to make some concessions because we're trying to keep this deck as close to $100 as possible. And these 6 do the job pretty well. From there, you've got your spells. You've got 3 Cross Dominator. This card is insane. It is a Forbidden Chalice that reduces the attack and defense to 0, which is pretty great. Then you've got 3 Pot of Desires, 3 Cosmic Cyclone. That's it for the 3 ofs. Cosmic Cyclone is just because this deck can lose to a Solemn Warning or a Solemn Strike, things like that. And also, you just want cards that that are able to trigger your muskets pretty quickly. Pot of Desires, again, needs to go in basically every deck. It says draw 2. It's a really simple way of explaining it, but I wrote a whole article on it, and I'm a big advocate of this card in basically every deck. It makes your deck just more consistent in general, and those 10 cards you banish generally aren't too important anyways, and if they are, you probably were going to lose that game overall, honestly. Then you've got 1 Upstart Goblin, just another good way to trigger your musket card and, 39 card. And then finally Double or Nothing for the Double or Nothing package. From there, you got your traps. You've got 3 Last Stand. This is a sort of like a Dark Bribe. I mean, it just doesn't let them draw, but it lets you negate any spell or trap. And you can only use 1 per turn, but that's pretty crazy. Then you've got 3 Desperado, which is the removal card of the deck. you can't even really call it a removal trap because the traps don't really exist in this deck, because you can activate it from your hand, but you can just pop one card on the field, one face-up card specifically, which is pretty crazy. And then you've got one Dancing Needle. I mostly display this just to have another search target. It's really pretty weak, but it was not too bad in some of my testing. And then finally, a Crooked Crown. This card's awesome. It lets you bypass the one normal summon rule, which is always great. You can also do some cool stuff with monster zones. If they're not playing really carefully, you can mess up their columns, because it lets you shut down their columns. So you can sometimes mess with their link arrows. From there, you've got the Xyz. I play a Gossip Shadow. This is just because I found myself running into situations where I would have 2 level 3s, and I didn't necessarily always want to put them into a link monster. And this also gives you some protection to Nibiru too, because a lot of the times they'll try to wait for your end of the main phase or right before you're gonna do negations, and then you just do this instead, and then they can't Nibiru you. One Abyss Dweller. It's the best generic rank 4 in the game, honestly. Then the 2 Utopia cards for the Utopia double package. 3 Magical Musketeer Max. This is arguably one of the best link monsters ever printed thus far. And I say that with no sense of hyperbole. It lets you summon just an infinite number of monsters or add a bunch of spells and traps. What it does is when it's summoned, you can pick either up to the number of spells and traps your opponent has, and you can summon that many different named musket monsters from your deck, or up to the number of monsters they have, and you can add that many different named magical musket spells and traps from your deck to your hand. So that's just super crazy. And it's just a generic Link 1. It's really great to summon this with 4 Mud Skipper, and then you have this as Link 1, and Skipper's Link 2, and you get to chain block, and you get to add a bunch of cards, or special summon a bunch of cards, and just go off from there. I play 1 Akashic Magician. This is just some good extra removal, and you can do some cool plays with the Link arrows and all that. It wasn't really too important, but it came up a couple times in the testing. I've been playing this deck for the whole month pretty extensively. Phoenix, Cerberus, and Unicorn. You just have so much room in your extra deck that there's really no reason not to play these kind of like generic, good utility link cards. Then I actually played a Trisbana. This is just because I found myself sometimes running into situations where I play against like Altergeist or Eldritch, and I wanted to be able to banish tons of back rows, so that was pretty good. Top Logic Bomber Dragon. Same kind of thing, it's just a generic good Link 4. Sometimes the burn effect does come up, but I usually would go from Trisbana banishing their back row to Bomber, bombing their front row, and then that was good to go. And then Boral Load and Boral Sword, just to round it out. Yeah, that's really it, guys. I just wanted to show you guys this deck really quick before I started my article on it. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know below.